Welcome to Transfer Talk. Loads to get through with the team this hour. We'll be focusing as well on Manchester United with YouTuber and fan Flex. You can tweet the show at Sky Sports News using the hashtag Transfer Talk. As ever, we've got a busy afternoon in store. We're going to kick off the show with YouTuber Flex United, massive Manchester United fan. Of course, good afternoon to you, Flex. Great to have you on.
Yes, thanks
Transfer
for having me,
Talk. Yeah, thanks for coming. Now, we're going to start with Paul Pogba. You might not be surprised to know. Yeah, Sky in Italy are reporting he's likely to leave Manchester United in the summer. What do you make of that?
It's not news. It's not news. I think Manchester United fans, he's divided a lot of opinion. He come with a lot of hope and expectation. We know the player he can be. He is a world-class player, or has world-class tendencies. We know what levels he can reach. It hasn't worked out at Manchester United for a number of reasons. A lot of people are onto Pogba because of some of his off-field antics in terms of some of the comments he comes out with, his agent, Raiola as well. But whatever you make of that, there's one thing we do know, that Manchester United are a better team with Pogba in it in terms of creation, goals, everything. He is the best player we have, but it's just gone south. I think a mixture between him coming with promises being made of a team being built around him and that process, him winning the World Cup in that. I think he wants a challenge for major honours, and at United right now he's not going to get that. I'm not surprised. I think he should have gone in the summer. Once he come out, I think he was in China or Japan, I think it was. And he said, I'm looking at a new challenge. I think when you start saying those kind of things, it's very hard to revoke that. And we didn't really see that from him. He ended up staying. We needed more midfielders as well as that. And now we're finding ourselves looking at like he's definitely going to leave.
Will there be a lot of disappointment amongst Manchester United fans if he does go and it hasn't worked out quite as well as you thought? Because when he came back, all the Pogba and everything like that, there was a lot of excitement. And understandably so. Massively.
He was doing music videos with Stormzy. You know, it was like the comeback of all comebacks. He was coming home. We were all gassed. Adidas campaign deals everywhere. It was supposed to be the comeback of all comebacks. And there will be an element of frustration from United fans because he hasn't hit the heights. But a lot of Manchester United fans I speak to, they've had it with Pogba in terms of the saga that goes around him. We wanted him to flourish. I want him to flourish. I still, if there was a way back for him, I'd love it to happen. But I believe that it's best for both parties that they go in a separate direction. I think it's clear he doesn't want to stay. As great as a player I know he can be, and I wanted it to work out for him. I do think he sometimes gets unfairly treated with some of the off-field stuff. I mean, there's no issue with him going to weddings and having a dance and things like that. You know, he's had to play for a couple of injuries, big injuries, and now he's out again. I'd be looking at our medical team to say, well, how has that happened? He's come back for a couple of appearances, got injured again, then needed an operation. That doesn't seem right to me. So I think it's a mixture of his commitment in the long term. He clearly doesn't want to be here, maybe mismanagement, and the project of Manchester United, which has just been an absolute shambles since Sir Alex Ferguson's left. I think it's a combination of all them things.
Well, someone who might come in will again excite the fans, because we know on doing this show all through the summer and all of this month, Manchester United fans announced Bruno Fernandes, all right? That one does actually look like it's edging closer. How exciting would this signing be for Manchester United?
Very, very exciting. We knew in the summer we needed midfielders, and that is the key area for Man United. We knew that we lost Herrera, we lost Fellaini without replacements. We knew those guys were going to leave. We didn't get replacements in. And even with Pogba, McTominay and Fred and Matic, we still knew that we would struggle to create. And lo and behold, that's happened. And we also knew if we got a couple of injuries in those key areas, i.e. now Pogba and McTominay out for large periods of time, we're going to struggle to create. Bruno Fernandes was talked about so heavily in the summer, almost like it was nailed on, for United to basically say we wasn't really interested. And it kind of shows the incompetence of how we're being run, for me. The fact that we're now going back in for him in January when this deal should have been done in the summer, it was much needed. And now it's like we're kind of panicking because we've got a few injuries, and now we're going to go and get him and pay the money we should have paid for in the summer. It's just another, frustration towards how the club is run and the structure of the club. But on Bruno Fernandes, I believe he possesses all the attributes. He gets goals from midfield, he's got vision, he's got accuracy, he's got talent, he's got class, and that's what we need in that attacking midfield area.
I must point out, and this will be good news for you Manchester United fans, that we think the financial package this January is significantly better for Manchester United than it would have been in the summer, as in there's more more of them are based on add-ons and how Manchester United perform. So if you end up spending what you would have spent in the summer, that's good news, because it means that you're winning trophies. Let's say he does come in. Is that the end of it for central midfield, or do you need more?
No, we need more. I mean, this deal, like I said, should have been done in the summer. With Ed Woodward, you never know. We could end up with flipping Bruno Mars for some more promotional work. We don't know. The wrong Bruno from Sacha Baron Cohen. Maybe that Bruno could turn up. We need this Bruno. Not the one from Tottenham, not the one from the film. We need this guy. Get it done, Ed Woodward, please. If you're watching, get it done. But we do need more. There's, players coming in January is the first thing. Always difficult. He's got to uproot, he's got to leave, come to a different league, bring his family, got to acclimatise, got to settle. That's one thing. Secondly, coming into a Manchester United side that does lack so much creativity, he's going to come with a lot of pressure. Rightly so for £60 million, but in a very unsettled Manchester United side, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. But he's box to box and he's creative. We need that defensive midfielder as well. We need an engine room in there. Yes, we've got McTominay, but we've seen what happens. We just do not have the depth. One injury to McTominay, and then we're now relying on Matic, who looked like he was going to be out of the door, nailed on in January, and now he's playing every game, and now he's going to be an integral part for the rest of the season. Do I think we'll get more deals done in January? No, I have no positivity about that, because it's just not something we regularly do. We've shown inferiority in this market too many times for me to believe that we're going to get Bruno Fernandes plus more. However, it's a great start and it's much needed, but it's not the only thing. He's not going to come and just get us ticking and make us the finished article. But it's the start. It's getting the cogs in place, getting the cogs in motion, to then going on to build something good.
We'll move from central midfield to the striking department now, because Marcus Rashford went off with an injury last night. We don't know how bad that injury is yet, by the way, but whether he's fit and available or out for a while, do you still need a striker anyway?
Absolutely. Criminal letting Lukaku leave without a replacement. I don't mind Solskjaer saying, do you know what? These are the players I want to work with, and if you don't want to be here, then off you go. That's fine. He's building something, and I respect that. And when he did make those decisions, I did respect it. But what he's done is he's put all his eggs into two unknown baskets, which is banking on Rashford to get 20 goals plus, which, to be fair to Rashford, he has stepped up and he's in the form of his life. So that's brilliant. And Martial to do the same thing. And very young Mason Greenwood, who's knocking on the door for first team. He's doing really well. We want to see more of him. He's nearly in double figures. But whatever you make of Lukaku in terms of his style of play, didn't fit into Manchester United, couldn't control anything, fair enough, that's fine. But you need to replace where those goals are coming from, and that is what we've seen. And again, injuries. As soon as we get an injury to the star man in Rashford, where are the goals going to come from? Where are they going to come from? So we were in for Haaland, custard pie on our faces, didn't work out. Looked like Ollie, because he's worked with him before, looked like, right, we'll get that done. Again, we get custard pie on our face with that. So for sure, I think we definitely need a forward, out-and-out goal scorer. Martial, his favourite position is number 9. We're seeing that, but is he that clinical in terms of 25 every season? Probably not. But we need that competition for places. So for sure, going forward, it's not going to happen in this window. I very much doubt it. But again, one for the future in the summer, we're going to need to strengthen up there.
Right, Fleck, stay where you are, because the transfer team are going to discuss this and might fire some questions over to you on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads of people getting in touch. Chewy has said Woodward has and always will be United's footballing problem. What do you think about that? I know you mentioned it there already.
Absolutely. I think there's so much debate whether it's Ollie in or Ollie out and things like that. The problems are far deeper than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think anybody who knows the club inside out knows that. And for me, if you're a CEO, if you're making decisions that high up, if you're in control of a corporate organisation that has a whole branch of stores around the country, and you keep appointing managers to different stores, then those stores start underperforming. How are you going to keep passing the buck to those failed managers? The people who own that corporation are going to go, actually, mate, you've hired X, Y, Z, and they've all failed. You can't keep getting it wrong in 6 years. It's been terrible. Commercially, fantastic. We're seeing record revenues off the pitch, but now I saw you guys release, the football rich list, as you wish, and Manchester City and Liverpool are now catching us. So even that side of the job that he's supposedly supposed to be the best at, that's now starting to stagnate. So for me, on and off the pitch, it's becoming a mess for Manchester United, and I think the real frustration at Manchester United isn't whether it's Ollie in or Ollie out. It's looking at the incompetence of the way the structure of the club, the recruitment, the owners taking out way more money than they're putting in, the investment, the net spend. Yeah, we spent £150 million on players in the summer, but you're looking at the net. We got rid of Lukaku for 75 million, so we only ended up paying about 50 million. That's nowhere near enough investment for what we needed. So, yeah, the jury's out. But for me, the real frustration should be at the owners and Ed Woodward.
Flex, later now we're going to be back with you to talk about Manchester United potential departures in this window. But now time for State of Play with Michael.
Thanks, Tom. Boubakary Soumaré is set to decide between signing for Manchester United or Chelsea before the transfer deadline. Let's go to Spurs, and they have been offered the chance to sign Porto striker Jose Luis on loan, but a work permit could be an issue and they might look elsewhere. Arsenal forward Eddie Nketiah will stay at the club this month. That's despite interest from a host of Championship sides. Huddersfield have loaned Leicester midfielder Andy King on loan for the rest of the season. He was at Rangers at the start of this season. And Everton are interested in Brazil and Gremio winger Everton Suarez, who is on the radar also of several top Premier League clubs. Let's go to the Championship now, and Fulham have signed from Oxford and Millwall keeper Jordan Archer on a free transfer. And in the Scottish Premiership, St Johnstone have confirmed winger Matthew Kennedy has signed a pre-contract with Aberdeen and will join at the end of the season. Simon Cox has left Southend by mutual consent after 3.5 years at Roots Hall.
Next on Transfer Talk, we'll bring you the half-term January report. Have the teams got what they want so far? Who needs to add? That's next. Away from transfers, just for the time being, Prince Harry's hosting the Rugby League World Cup draw at Buckingham Palace right now. It's one of his first public appearances he and the Duchess of Sussex have made since they announced that they would step back from royal life. Now, he's a patron of the Rugby Football League. This could potentially be his final duty as a royal. So he's hosting the 2021 draw from the Palace for the men's, the women's and the wheelchair tournaments. That's going on right now, and we will bring you the results of those draws a bit later on the bottom of your screen.
Right, it's a halfway point in the transfer window, so let's bring you a half-term report. We told you at the start of the window that if Liverpool were to sign anyone, they may look at a versatile forward, and they struck first in the transfer window, signing Takumi Minamino from RB Salzburg.
What about Manchester City? Well, Pep Guardiola has maintained the club won't be doing any business in this January window. But what happens if his dream centre-back becomes available? You just never know.
For Leicester, Brendan Rodgers said his priority was keeping hold of his star players. And so far, so good where that's concerned. As regards new recruits, a defender and a backup to Jamie Vardy remain an open option.
Chelsea are in the market for a centre-back. It's unlikely they'll be going back in for Nathan Ake at Bournemouth, so there's still a position to fill on that front. They also want a striker. Will they let Olivier Giroud go to Inter without getting a replacement in? There could be an extra box to tick as well. Chelsea have held talks with Lille over midfielder Boubakary Soumaré. He's expected to leave Lille this month.
We heard our guest Flex talking about Manchester United's search for an attacking creative midfielder, and that continues with rumblings for a move for Sporting Lisbon's Bruno Fernandes hotting up, and a backup to Marcus Rashford seems more of a priority after the forward picked up a back injury against Wolves last night.
Yes, Chris Wilder's Sheffield United doing extremely well this season. He wanted two centre-backs and a central midfielder to cover Ollie Norwood. He's already got Jack Rodwell through the door into play as the right-sided centre-half. There's still work to do at this halfway stage.
As for Wolves, a defensive midfielder we believe is on the list, but now that Patrick Cutrone has left the club, could there be in the market for a cover for striker Raul Jimenez?
Jose Mourinho was targeting a right-back and an attacking winger, but that has not happened just yet. One player in, though, is midfielder Jedson Fernandes, and the injury to Harry Kane means a striker is now a top priority. It just shows how things can change in this January window.
Now, Roy Hodgson stated at the start of the window that the club need to bring in two fullbacks and a forward. Well, time is ticking, and Crystal Palace fans are still waiting on any news on any new recruits.
And we will finish this part with a big wish for Arsenal fans this month was a centre-back. Mikel Arteta has told us he is not interested in John Stones. Mavropanos has left on loan. There is still a box to tick. Plenty to do. We're going to cover the second half of the Premier League table later in the programme.
Yes, we are. We're going to chat a little bit more on Wolves, though, a little bit more detail about it, because Nuno Espirito Santo had said the need was quite desperate for new signings. Michael, I mean, are they desperate?
If the manager says they are, then you go with it. I mean, you know, you look at it. I mean, you look at it yesterday, and I'm always intrigued to see the teams in FA Cup games, especially replays, and it looked a very, very strong team again after a long Christmas. And he's got the Europa League to come as well, so he probably wants more bodies. I just look at him, he does sort of like a specific play. I mean, he's had a brilliant few transfer windows, hasn't he, the last couple of years? So if he thinks it, then that's fine by me.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that they'll certainly trust him. But have they maybe left themselves a little bit short, Wolves, Dave, just with a couple of players that they've let go?
Yeah, I think there's an argument for that. We know that Nuno likes to operate with a small squad, but I think even he at this point would say that the squad is too thin for his liking. I think this is probably the most open we've seen Nuno Espirito Santo since he went to Wolves about the need for deals to happen, and the need is now becoming extremely important as we head towards the close of the transfer window. There's a little bit of frustration amongst the fan base, I know, that they really want to get these deals sorted. The club are working on it. We know that they're in talks with Leonardo Campagna, a 19-year-old striker coming in from Ecuador, but he essentially is still going to be one for the future. And even if they wanted to throw him in, they can't really, because he is with Ecuador on a pre-Olympic tournament for the next few weeks. So that's a no-go if they wanted to chuck him in straight away. They're in talks about a deal for him. It's not quite done as of yet. This is make or break for Wolves. 7th in the table, 3 points off 5th. The ambition is there from the owners. Fosun want to do the deals. Nuno wants to do the deals. The fans want to do the deals. They want to take that next step. And the next 2 weeks could be crucial, make or break. And you talk about players leaving. I think there might be even a suggestion that Wolves have almost backed themselves a little bit into a corner. Patrick Cutrone has left. Did he need to? They could have hung on to him until a replacement was brought in. Jesus Vallejo, not played that much. Could they have hung on to him before sending him back from that loan spell? They've let players go at the moment without bringing in those replacements. So is there a question mark about the pressure now that's being applied to Wolves? They have to get these deals done. And the clock's ticking now.
Yeah, we'll be talking about Wolves for a couple more minutes. So Wolves fans, get in touch with #transfertalk. Let us know what you think you need. But JD, Nuno Espirito Santo has a very clear style of play. He doesn't like to budge from that. Does that mean that he's looking at very specific types of players because they have to fit into that system?
I mean, everything that we're talking about here on the table today in discussing the consistency and those players understanding those rules, that comes from the consistency and them playing together and them understanding, having chemistry with each other. But the problem is, at this stage of the season, playing, 38 games already? When you're in January and you play 38 games and you still want to be competitive in all of those cup competitions, plus still the pressures of actually finishing in an expected position within the league, you do need recruitments, you do need additions, you do need help, because using those players consistently, eventually when it gets into the later months, the legs are going to start to show. And it will. It's unfortunate, but it's just putting 50 games on a player's legs when you're talking about March, April. That's where you get injuries. That's where you get fitness problems. That's where you start losing games you shouldn't lose, because in those crunch moments, the other team will have a little bit more rest in the previous part of the season than you would. And that's just how it is, unfortunately.
And James, a slightly lower scale, I suppose. Earlier on, we were talking, Michael gave a very passionate plea that Tottenham do need another striker. They can't just rely on Harry Kane, because he does get injured. But we said that, strikers don't want to play second fiddle. Are Wolves in a similar situation? Because Raul Jimenez is doing so well that they might struggle to bring someone in as second choice. And we've seen that happen with Patrick Cutrone already.
He's been phenomenal this season, and it is tricky. Strikers, they're like the most wanted things. They're like presents at Christmas, games and Christmas for kids. Like strikers, every manager wants a striker, every club wants a striker. It is a difficult situation potentially, but as JD said, 38 games in January Wolves have played this season. There is plenty of games to be had at Wolves. For new signings coming in, they're going to need backups. Arsene Wenger used to say about players in the red zone. Wolves players, I would say literally the majority of their team must be in the red zone already, and they need new recruits and a forward to back up Raul Jimenez.
It's just some of those starters that we think of all the time, Jimenez, Cody, Connor Cody, Traore, like those players have already played 30 games at this stage of the season. That is a lot of games. That is a lot of minutes on those legs. And now to think that you're going to get the same effort and the same quality in the second part of the season without giving them a rest and be able to be competitive on all fronts is a little bit. It's hard to think that way.
I would just say let's not write them off as going to automatically going to get tired. I think Wolves had the fewest injuries of any Premier League side last season. They operate with a small squad, but the recovery work that they do is really cutting edge. They look after their players, and the physios and the doctors at Wolves are absolutely fantastic, and they are able to get those players on the pitch. And that is why essentially Nuno Espirito Santo has been able to operate with such a small squad. Yes, I think maybe from a Wolves point of view and the fans' point of view, this is going to be uncharted territory in the final stages of the Europa League. And it's going to be a case of see how these players go. They do want to strengthen. The money's there to strengthen. They really want to. A wide forward, maybe a striker if they can, central midfielder to put pressure on Neves and Moutinho, maybe a centre-back, although we know Willy Bolly is coming back to fitness at some point this season. They really want to do it, but let's not completely say, well, they're definitely going to tie, because we're not sure. We don't know yet.
It's not they're definitely going to tie. It's just the longevity of any season and the expectations that's on those players. It's hard for them to be consistent Thursday, Sunday, Thursday. Like, that's what it is. It's 3 games in the space of a week. That's really going to be the factor.
We started this show, and I think Wolves had already started their season. The Europa League qualifiers, and then had a brilliant win in the playoff round against Torino. I think it was Torino. They've done ever so well, and I always say, if you win the Europa League, you really do deserve it, because it is a long competition. You win the group stage, and you're not in the rounds of 16, you're in the round of 32. You've got still a long way to go. But Nuno knows the competition well. Moutinho knows the competition well. But as we say, there's a lot of games played so far, and there's a lot more to come.
Yeah, quite a few tweets have just come in as well. Matt says a striker and a creative midfielder are the minimum requirements at Wolves. Maybe another right back to cover. Doherty Kieran says Wolves need a striker. Jack says I think the amount of games Wolves play, including the Europa League, they need to look at another striker to cover the likes of Raul Jimenez and Diego Jota. So most people are saying the same kind of thing here. And Dave says that we need a minimum of 5 players, a centre-back, a right wing-back, a central midfielder, and 2 attackers. And simply, I like this one from Nigel, who just says, in Nuno we trust. All right, keep your tweets coming. Hashtag Transfer Talk at Sky Sports News. Still to come on Transfer Talk, more from Flex United and the rest of the Premier League teams' wish lists to come. We'll also talk Arsenal.
Now, earlier we brought you the top half of the table's half-term report. Time for the rest of the teams in the Premier League. Now, Everton want to sign Everton. Stay with me here. They're interested in Gremio winger Everton Suarez. Now, he's also been watched by Spurs and Arsenal in the past.
Southampton's wish list is clear. They're still in the market for young talent, and there's still question marks over Cedric Suarez's future, who's, of course, his contract is up in the summer. But Ralph Hasenhüttl wants to solidify those defensive options, and at the minute, the wait goes on.
Let's go to Newcastle now. Injuries are a major issue at the club, and Steve Bruce says he's looking for players with a striker a priority, and also Ademola Lookman is still a target.
Brighton are still looking for more striking options as well. The club have made it clear that they want to keep Glenn Murray in this window, but they still want to add goals to help both Neil Maupay and Aaron Connolly. As we continue, they're also looking in the fullback position, as you can see, both the left and the right back as options to bolster in the fullback positions.
Right, let's go to Burnley now, and they're still looking for a box-to-box midfielder, but Sean Dyche has said January is an extremely difficult window.
And after that, what seemed like the longest medical ever, we did confirm that West Ham have signed Darren Randolph, so you can tick that box for a goalkeeper, but we saw the move for Jedson Fernandes kind of fall apart. So at this moment, West Ham will still be looking to add a midfielder.
Now, defensive reinforcements key for Watford and Nigel Pearson. What a great start they've had under him. He may even look to add across the whole back four. Reports in Italy that Watford want to sign Napoli fullback Fusi Gulam, and Napoli value him at around £10 million.
And as the main man Dave Reed stated earlier, goalkeeper, check. Pepe Reina in on a season-long loan. Midfielder, check. Danny Drinkwater's here as well on a season-long loan. But that's where we stop and we wait, as the striker position still needs to be filled, especially after Wesley's season-ending injury. Now, these are important 15 days for Villa.
It's been a tough few weeks for Bournemouth, hasn't it? But manager Eddie Howe has received good news yesterday after we told you Chelsea won't be signing Nathan Ake, and Callum Wilson will also be staying at the club, but they may need to add a defender.
And Norwich, we haven't forgotten about you. We definitely could not forget about you. Business done nice and early. Midfielders in, Lucas Rapp, Andre Duda. Norwich fans remain hopeful. I'm telling you, they're still looking for a winger. And overall, there's still plenty of work to do in the Premier League. The wish list is there.
Wish list is there, and a couple of clubs have got Tottenham right back Kyle Walker-Peters on their wish list. Michael, I'm glad you made it back in time. What is the latest on Kyle Walker?
Only just sat down. No. Yes, he's very sought after. I think the two clubs are at the final stage of looking to get him are Crystal Palace and Southampton. Really keen interest that Crystal Palace have wanted a right back for some time now after Aaron Wan-Bissaka left at the start of last summer. Southampton, my colleague Lyle Thomas, who's covering Southampton, says they're looking to add more English players. Like back a few years ago, they had such a great English core of players. So it's a wait and see job at the moment. I'll be speaking to Roy Hodgson tomorrow and hopefully get a definitive on it.
But if you look at, he's a right back who can play left back, James, who needs him more, Southampton or Palace?
Well, I'm going to say Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace are in desperate need for full-back cover right now. The only left-back they've got is Patrick Van Aanholt. If he's injured, they've got nobody else to step in. They really do need full-back cover. Roy Hodgson said at the start of the window that was a key area for him to cover. If you look at the players who are out, Joel Ward, Jeffrey Schlupp, Sakho's also injured at the moment. He can play left-back. They really do need someone in, like Kyle Walker-Peters, who can cover both sides. He can play right-back, he can play left-back. I think that's a perfect fit for Crystal Palace. Someone young, someone energetic to come into the side to really boost them and give them a bit of an energy.
I have to go the complete opposite way. I think Southampton need him. I think they've changed their identity. I think they want young British talent in, especially with Cedric Suarez's future potentially being up in terms of remains at the club in the summer. This is the perfect chance for Kyle Walker-Peters to go to another Premier League club, make his name, work with a manager that likes to be defensive-minded, likes to work on defensive formation, and really, really wants to work with young talent.
But Michael, yes, JD's right that Cedric's out of contract in the summer, but they have got young Kane Ramsey. I know he can play centre-back as well. They've also got Jan Valery, who's been playing quite a lot ever since Hasenhüttl came in. So would it be guaranteed that Walker-Peters would play if he goes to Southampton?
You'd imagine if Southampton are looking to sign a player on loan from Tottenham Hotspur, if it's a Premier League loan, you'd expect them to tell Kyle Walker-Peters, you're going to be our first choice right back until the end of the season. It's been a tough few years for Kyle Walker-Peters. You know, he's played the odd game here and there. He's had Kieran Trippier over him, and then Serge Aurier now over him. And I think that, for now, spells the end for Walker-Peters, whether it's a permanent or a loan. Or does Walker-Peters say, no, Jose, no, Spurs, I am good, I just need a run of games, and that is what he needs right now, whether it be Crystal Palace or Southampton. Both excellent clubs, and I think they'd be a good move for either club.
He's a player, though, at the start of the season. He started right at the start, didn't he? He produced, I think, a couple of seasons ago, I remember a game against Leicester, and he absolutely was flying down that right-hand side. I think he had 4 assists in the game. Why hasn't it worked out for him at Tottenham?
I just think a run of games. You know, he's a young player, he's an under-21 international, and you'll see other under-21 players sort of thriving in their clubs, but it's a tough time, a tough period for these young players. He's an under-20 World Cup winner. You've seen with Adeloma Lookman having issues as well at Leipzig. As I say, I just think he needs a club to give him his 12 games. Yeah, let's see how you get on. With Crystal Palace, he'd have the likes of Wilf, to work with Wilf Zaha, be fantastic. That right-back position will be his at Palace. They really do need someone, and for what they tell me at Southampton, they're looking to restore sort of the younger English element, and Kyle Walker-Peters ticks that box. So it'd be interesting to see who does get him. As I said, I'll be speaking to Roy Hodgson tomorrow, but he did say at the start on Saturday that he was hopeful, but what's it, Thursday today? So it's still not happened.
Yeah, well, Dave, what about Southampton? Has their need to strengthen in general, not just at right back, diminished because of their good run of form? I mean, they're up to 12th at the moment.
Yeah, unbeaten, I think, in the last 6 games in all competitions. So it's been a great turnaround for Southampton. I think what it does do is that it alleviates a bit of pressure, not only on the manager, but also on the Southampton decision makers there, because if they were still struggling towards the bottom end, and obviously they're still not out of any sort of relegation battle, they could still get sucked into that. But if they were struggling in the relegation zone, that would have raised the pressure on making signings in this January window in order to get them out of it. So this mini turnaround in form has alleviated a little bit of pressure. Southampton have always said in this window, if we can do something, we will, but we're not desperate. Maybe that would have changed if they were still at the bottom of the division. They're not, and I think that's alleviated a bit of pressure on them.
I think it's wonderful that Ralph Hasenhüttl stayed at the club. You know, I remember watching the 9-0 and
yes,
he said,
might go then,
yeah, I'm humiliated, I'm embarrassed, I don't know what to say. The players came out, I'm embarrassed. But he stayed with the club. and they're looking really good now.
Well, and they beat Leicester.
That's what I'm saying.
The other way around.
Their redemption
Yeah.
was winning the reverse fixture.
Absolutely, yeah.
They were brilliant in that.
Yeah,
Yeah, patience was rewarded.
I've enjoyed speaking to Ralph Hasenhuttl when we've got the opportunity in press conference. He looks like the players really go for him. It was just an off day, and Leicester were sensational. They didn't bite the bullet, and good for Southampton. They're doing great.
Yeah, well, the Africa Cup of Nations can often be a factor when it comes to signing players. And there's some news ahead of next year's competition. James, explain what it is.
Well, a decision was made yesterday to move the tournament from the summer, it was planned to be in June, to January. That's based in Cameroon. Now, it was moved last year in Egypt to the summer, which was a big relief to many clubs around the world because they knew that they had their players throughout the whole season. But due to unfavourable weather, the tournament's been moved to January to February. Now, what that means is, for Premier League clubs, not great. 6 games potentially players could be missing by taking part in that tournament, which is extremely high amount. Now, they did say the tournament won't clash with the FIFA Club World Cup tournament that's being held in China next summer, but obviously Premier League clubs, all the other clubs will not be too impressed by that, and I believe it's going to have a big effect on the transfer situations for clubs. They're going to have to take this into account when looking for players from that region. Do you think it's going to affect them dramatically, or...?
I still feel if you have a top talent from Africa, because of the commercial aspect of it, in terms of the way that it can grasp a whole continent, and also the impact that they're having in terms of on a national scale, because we've seen the growth of African football, especially over recent years. I don't think it would deter a club from being like, I'm not going to sign him because he's going to have to leave mid-season. But I feel they would actually maybe recruit a little bit heavier. So if you bring your main target in, who is an African player, I feel like they maybe would bring another target in, knowing that they're going to be missing for a limited period of time. For example, look at Liverpool. Think about Salah, Mane and Keita. Now, if you take those 3 players out of the Liverpool team, that's a big difference. Big difference.
Yeah, it can. There are a few clubs who could be affected, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, the one that stands out for me really is Crystal Palace. Jeffrey Schlupp, Checo Kouyaté, Jordan Ayew, Wilfried Zaha. all within their, first team squad.
Don't tell me that, Dave.
So it could be a late night for you on deadline day.
That's the one.
But then you've got Arsenal with Aubameyang and
Dave.
Nicolas Pepe as well. Everton, Alex Iwobi, Jean-Philippe Gbamin. Oumar Niasse, if he's still there at that point. Then you've got Leicester, Kelechi Iheanacho, Wilfred Ndidi. Daniel Amarty's not really in the picture. Slimani's out on loan. But Crystal Palace, for me, those 4 seem like they're well within the first team squad. I think it will be a serious consideration for these clubs in the summer.
Massive consideration, and it will consider how they act in the future. And another thing as well, these players are so proud of the nations they play for. Do you know what? I remember back in the day, Freddie Kanouté switched from France to play for Mali, and there was such a disagreement that he ended up leaving Spurs because he played in the Africa Cup of Nations, and the relationship, I mean, such a long time ago, I don't know the ins and outs, I'm not going to pretend I do, but he ended up leaving after that, and it was never the same. He was a top striker, Kanouté, but he wanted to play in this tournament.
Just culturally, it's like held to the highest esteem to represent your country, to captain your country, especially when you have such an African, like a heritage. It is of such importance, and especially those tournaments, maybe because we're from Europe or we're disattached from it, we don't realise culturally how important the African Cup of Nations is to them, and winning those tournaments and representing them and representing your country in those tournaments, I really do believe, where sometimes we focus so much on club football, in those sort of cultures, it is nations. Football is very vital.
Yeah. Well, it could mean it's busy for us on Transfer Talk, and good morning transfers as well. Right now, it's time for Stay or Go. Get your boards down, because today's subject is Mesut Ozil, and I'll just say why, because he said in a newspaper today that he is committed to Arsenal. He says that he's been given a lift under the new manager, Mikel Arteta, and he says, I'm very pleased with my contract that will continue here this year and the year after. I can't tell you what the future will bring. I'm excited about the future, but I don't know what's going to happen. All right, so Mesut Ozil, should he stay or should he go, transfer team?
No, see, I almost want to be controversial now. I'm a little bit split.
You've all gone stay, which I must admit, I wasn't expecting the full house there. James, why have you said stay?
think he's got a new leash of life under Mikel Arteta. There's some quotes recently where he was saying he's believing in Arteta's philosophy. He's showing it on the pitch as well, fighting. He says fighting and having possession, being in control of the game is what I love, and that's exactly what Arteta's bringing to Arsenal. He's 31 years old. There's been so much talk about Mesut Ozil at Arsenal for so long now, and I think he's certainly, since Arteta's turned up, he's turned a corner, and I think he should stay.
OK, and JD, I know you weren't sure there, but you did so stay.
The reason why I would turn around and say Mesut Ozil should stay is because of the impact that he could have for the longevity of Arsenal. You're talking about Joe Willock, Reece Nelson, Emil Smith-Rowe, those young players that's coming through. They need somebody to look up to. They need somebody within the similar position that they can turn around and lean on. And who better than a former World Cup winner and all the rest of it? So the accolades speak for himself. I know sometimes he's been under criticism for his, let's say, performances or attitude, as they turn around and say sometimes, but it doesn't take the quality away from who he is as a player. And he's still a world beater on his day.
Wow. Every single one of you agree that he is staying. Right, we're back with Manchester United fan and YouTuber Flex United to get his thoughts on potential outgoings at his club. We're back at the Skypad with Flex United, YouTuber and Manchester United fan. Flex, we talked about Paul Pogba's future, we talked about potential incomings at Old Trafford, but now let's talk about people who may leave or certainly been linked with a move away, and one of them is Ashley Young. Inter Milan want him, Manchester United want to keep him. What's the fans' view?
For me, on a personal note, we can't afford to let him go. There's a lot of Manchester United fans who I feel maybe being a bit harsh on Ashley Young. You've got to look at it as he came under the Fergie era as a marauding winger from Aston Villa, did well in the early years, then he got converted into a fullback. I don't want to keep mentioning the same thing about how the club is run, but he's been converted into a right-back and has been right-back ever since. That shouldn't be happening. Been our number one choice only up until Wan-Bissaka's just come in this season. In big games, he's always there. He's always fit. He's always ready to go. I've seen him pocket Salah. I've seen him pocket Hazard. He's done it to the best. He steps up in big games with just that sheer scumbaggery. Like you just don't know what you get. Do you know what I mean? Elbows out, legs out.
The wingers don't like facing him, is what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? You don't want to play against an Ashley Young. He's that guy you just rather have on your team than not. However, the situation that we're in, Luke Shaw's probably got a worse injury record than Darren Anderton and Ledley King put together. He can't stay fit. It's true. It's true. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, Spurs fans' expression, but he's not reliable. So if we let him go, Luke Shaw's probably going to get another injury. Tuanzebe's only just coming back. We've got Fosu-Mensah back off loan after a very long-term injury. Eric Bailly can't stay fit. If we let Ashley Young go in this window, for me, that spells trouble. We need his experience, and if we do, we've got young Brandon Williams who's going from strength to strength, which is great. But we need legs. We need legs. Unless he's going to bring in another fullback, which is almost certainly not going to happen in this window. For me, Ashley Young has to stay. So
for now, Young stays, you think. What about another player who can play left-back, but is primarily a centre-back in Marcus Rojo? Always linked with a move away, but never gets a proper run in the team.
Mental. Mr. Narcos himself, mate. Mental, he is crazy. Rojo he's one of them defenders, like, he's just so powerful. I don't know how he hasn't got more red cards than he has. He's always in for a tackle, robust and strong, but again, fitness. And he hasn't been playing regularly. So if it's as part of the Bruno Fernandes deal, there's talks of, he might not want to go back to Sporting because there's a better offer from Turkey. Board, Ed, whatever it is, pay the money, make the difference, get him gone. If it's part of the Bruno Fernandes deal, I don't mind that because Rojo's not part of the plans anyway. It's different with Ashley Young, where he's coming in regularly. We've got other players who can come into centre half and stuff like that and play. So if it's part of the Fernandes deal, for me, that's of more magnitude. We need to get that done. So for me, he can go, Rojo can go.
What about Andreas Pereira? Because there's been talk of him in that deal as well.
Again, legs. If we let these players go, we need players in return. And not just like for like. We need to add. We haven't got the depth. Pereira's been sporadic. I think Pereira's got good energy. He's technically a very good footballer. I think he likes to remind us that he is Brazilian sometimes. The odd little flick, the odd little trick, Cruyff turn and stuff. Sometimes we forget he's actually Brazilian. He doesn't have that flair. But the decision-making's not there. We've seen Mata come into the side the last couple of games. And that decision-making, that acuteness on the ball to make that decision at the right time, Mata seems to have that over him. Lingard in the attacking midfield position has been missing since he's done the dance floor at the Emirates. We ain't seen him since. That we haven't. So in the number 10 position, we're looking for more. But right now, if we let him go, it's going to be the same situation. I don't think put it this way, I can't see us letting players out the door unless we're getting a player for him plus more because we just do not have the depth. So for me, Andreas Pereira, if it's part of the Bruno Fernandes deal, okay, I can see that because we need Bruno Fernandes. But for me, it's then losing more legs, and then you're going to rely on Mata and Lingard after that. So for me, nah, he has to stay. And
surely Nemanja Matic has to stay just because of injuries in midfield, and you've always said that you're short in midfield.
Absolutely. Look, it was looking like Matic was nailed on to leave in this transfer window. Forgotten man, had a bit of an injury, but also Solskjaer's team selections early on in the season were very clear. You know, Matic was not his guy. He was going to go with McTominay. It's been his breakthrough season. McTominay's done really well. Matic, however, I think he's got attributes that we can use. You know, his stature, his experience, his calmness on the ball at times does help us. You know, he came in against Burnley, big tough team, it worked. You know, we're seeing him in games where his calmness can actually have an influence on the midfield. But if you want top 6, if you want to knock on the door for top 4, Matic might be your guy. If we're buying into this long-term vision that Ollie's portraying with younger, fresher players, more energetic players, Matic doesn't fit into that. 30 plus, you would look to move him on. But right now, we can't afford to let him go. And that's the sad state that we're in. We're now looking at players that, in a different period of Manchester United, would never get a look in. But with how depleted the squad is, we're relying on these types of players. So no, Matic can't go anywhere.
So with the exception of Marcus Rojo, you want all of these players that I've said to stay, Ashley Young, Andreas Pereira and Nemanja Matic, you want them to stay. But would that be a different story in the summer? Would you prefer wholesale changes then?
Max Exodus, mate, get them all out. get them all out. In the summer, you've got a lot more time to prepare, a lot more time to get your targets. When I'm saying these players are to stay, that's exactly what I mean. It's to do with the position we're in and us backfilling the spaces that we didn't fill in the summer last year. So we can't afford to let these guys go. In the summer, it's a whole different ball game. If we get Bruno Fernandes in this summer, it's fantastic. It gives us the springboard to keep moving out a lot of this dead wood that a lot of United fans talk about. Players like Phil Jones, players like Ashley Young, players like Mata, players like Rojo, Darmian went, Fellaini went, Herrera went. These players that are not part of this new Solskjaer mode. You're looking at Maguire, Bissaka and James, they fit that profile. Bruno Fernandes would fit that profile. In the summer, I'm expecting wholesale changes again because we need that investment.
Let's go back to the desk. Michael's waving. I think you've got a question for Flex about Manchester United.
Well, Flex, I looked at the Deloitte figures at the start of this week, and the club I follow a little bit is Tottenham, and I've seen that they've gone to the top now in London in terms of revenue. Champions League is the key. What is a good season for Manchester United?
Realistically, at the beginning of the season, Manchester United fans were all honest and said Solskjaer would do brilliantly to get 4th with this team. It's nowhere near an expectancy of Manchester United of where we want to be. But if you're going through a transition, which we seem to be going through every couple of years, you have to reevaluate where you need to be. Now, as fans, it's hard because we've got a bit of snobbery, especially as Manchester United fans. We should be challenging for titles. We should be winning Champions League. We should be attracting the best players in the world. But when you're going through a transition period as big as ours and as a mess as it is, we have to adjust those parameters. We've got to. So for me, a successful season would be a trophy. It's not going to be the Carabao Cup anymore because City absolutely ruined us. I can't see us doing anything there. So FA Cup or Europa League and getting into 4th. That's realistic. It's not where we want to be. We shouldn't celebrate it because we got Liverpool about to win the league. It's hard times as a Manchester United fan right now. We can't celebrate that, but for me, yeah.
But it might get harder though, right? Because I'm going to have to ask you about this Sunday, live on Super Sunday, Liverpool against Manchester United. Yeah. You've just said you accept that you think Liverpool are going to win the league. All right, a lot of people will agree with you. But how much would you love to just break that unbeaten record?
That would just feel amazing. You know, they're looking like they're going to do the Arsenal, do the Invincibles. We can't have it. We can't. I think Arsenal fans would agree with that. None of us here can have Liverpool doing that. It's painful with Manchester United. They have Man City dominating for a little while, local rivals, Liverpool, even fiercer rivals. It's a mess. But if we can go there and get a win, oh my God, I think it'll be ecstatic. There'll be absolute scenes. We'll be singing Ollie's back at the wheel. Honestly, that's what we'll be singing. The fan cams will be singing Ollie's back at the wheel if we can go and do a job against them. But look, you've got to look at it in the context of everything. There are times where we're far superior to Liverpool when Liverpool are going through this 30-year transition that they've been going through. And we'd go to Anfield, get rolled over. They'll come to United, roll us over. It can happen because form goes out the window, but this is a super tough task.
We're looking forward to it. Flex, we've really enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you very much. Hopefully see you again. Thanks to the guest as well, JD, James, Bridgie, get out my seat, please. You're not there yet. Dave as well, thank you very much indeed. Great show today. Well done to all of you. We'll be back in the morning for Good Morning Transfers. Same time, you know when it is, 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. We're joined by Jermaine Pennant. Transfer Talk returns tomorrow. That's from midday. Michael's about to storm out. He's furious. And Darmasheth and Carvey Solical are back with the transfer show. That continues at 7 p.m. tonight. Coming up on Sky Sports News, 15 days to go in this transfer window. Busy weekend of Premier League fixtures ahead. Hear what the managers have to say. And we'll bring you the latest from the cricket as well. South Africa v England.